So what was Saigon like? What was the experience? Everybody has been wanting to go to Saigon. Is it everything people make it out to be?
Yes, and more. I think my main takeaway from Saigon was that it was really school. I had prayed to God that I get into a school to get properly trained as an actor. So many of my colleagues trained for 3 years in musical theater school or drama school before they even tried to audition for professional gigs. And I had the opportunity to go into a professional gig on my first audition. And that's it. I mean, it was really school because I realized how much of it how much of the craft I still have to learn, and just the level, the standard, the expectation of setting a show of that caliber is so high. And I had an opportunity to watch the show later in the contract as we were approaching the final few venues because I was covering Tui and the engineer. I had the opportunity, they give you a show watch so you can see where the show's at, so you can plot out your track. And I saw the show in Zurich and I'll never forget it. I was like, wow, this is such an amazing show. And this is already like 9-10 months in that I've been doing it. And the experience on stage is so different from when you're off stage, when you're watching it, because it's just an amazing show. And there's very little I could do to even attempt to wreck it.
Wow.
And everything is so set, it's so beautifully done. It sounds amazing. The talent on stage is really undeniable. So you feel that I need to do my job. I need to do my job well. And that's why they hire the best of the best. And that's why to get into a show like that, you would have needed training. You would have needed to pass through a rigorous audition process and casting process. And yeah, it was school. So that whole 1 year of Miss Saigon was really school for me. Getting to see all the different theaters and understanding theater culture in the UK, but also really working with people at the top of their game.
What was it like working with a foreign cast? Because I'm sure you've had to do a lot of adjustments.
Yeah.
First, before we even get there, bakit hanggang ngayon Pilipino pa rin ang hinahanap ni Macintosh?
You know what? I think before, during the first exodus of Filipinos in Miss Saigon in the '89 casting, they had the rest. Monique and the first, anong tawag doon? I called them like the first adventurers. The first one to really plant the Filipino flag abroad. Michael Williams, John Briones, that first cast. Junix in Ocean. Because then, reliable you had musical theater talent that were triple threats, that knew musical theater, jazz, ballet, that could sing musical theater in the technique that was relevant then, and then could speak English really, really well. So it was like an easy casting check. First go to the Philippines because they have the cultural musical theaters alive then. It was much bigger than I'm not sure. Maybe it's a point of contention, but then maybe the appreciation for musical theater then was much larger than it was now. Even if we have more theater companies, pero parang mas malaki yung shows then, and the practice of musical theater was more extensive back then in the Philippines. So ang dami mong products of musical theater. So when people come in the region, we had the best of the best. If we're looking for musical theater triple threats, we'll go to Manila.
Yeah.
Because we have the best of the best. Fast forward to now, we still have some really, really good talent coming out of the Philippines, pero humabol na sa English yung mga neighboring countries have it.
So are you saying that there are now more Asians coming into the cast?
We have Japanese, Singaporeans, people from Hong Kong, Malaysians. I'm sure I'm missing more. Indonesians.
Do they have auditions in those countries as well?
I think they come from various places now. But then, and as far as the Asians in the cast of Miss Saigon, it's a little bit more diverse already in the kind of, or the regions and the countries that Asians are coming from. So we have Vietnamese as well. So really,
magagaling din.
Magagaling. Sai, really, really, really good, talented, and the English also is really, really good.
What is the biggest challenge being Filipino coming into a largely British cast? You mentioned that most of it are British, and then next would be
I would guess. I would hazard a guess that in a population of a Miss Saigon company, you'd have the most would be British, and the second would be Filipinos pa rin. So medyo majority pa rin yung mga Filipino. It might be because it's also like a nice tradition already to maintain to cast from the Philippines, and we're also really still very talented, I think.
right.
So it's there, but the challenge is, at least for me, this is a personal challenge. Is what I remember the first year there, just being hit like a wall of how different the culture is, and how different the Brits are from you, and it's natural because it's literally worlds apart, and it took a while for me to kind of like assimilate, and anything that you knew to be familiar and home is gone. Right? I was lucky that I was traveling with my missus, but when you're there and you're in the thick of things, you're rehearsing, and then after you go out for a pint at the pub. Sorry. I mean, these are all new experiences. All of them, most of them are really nice and exciting, but some of them are also really very strange and new. So you're like, oh my god, like, you know, and
Even the language, because even though we are English speakers, iba yung accent.
very different. I thought I was a good English speaker,
Yeah,
and I think in English as well.
yeah,
But then our English is more American English.
yeah.
So our first venue was Manchester, and Manchester has a very unique language as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like learning that goes on in the first few months before everything settles. But then you don't really have time to learn it first before you go into work. You're straight up hitting the rehearsal process already. So you just learn along the way. And I think what was a nice thing was every venue we stayed in for Miss Saigon, the company stayed there for at least a month. So there was an opportunity to kind of settle and know the place and go sightseeing as well. So, but yeah, so it was a learning process.
A lot of Filipinos go into, and you mentioned this, a lot of Filipinos aspire, kasi ever since Lea Salonga, yun na yung di ba, pinaka-goal ng halos lahat ng mga bata, hindi lang mga theater actors, is to be the next Lea Salonga. But basically, they look at Saigon as the ticket, the golden ticket in, and then if they achieve that, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can go home and I can, you know, have that in my resume. But you were different. You wanted something further than that. So what did you do to prepare? I mean, there's a contract. How long was your contract with Saigon?
The contract was 1 year, and our visa was attached to that contract as well.
So did you start thinking about what if this contract ends? How do I move forward?
So you're constantly playing out all of these scenarios in your head about your next step, and by providence, I think there was an announcement that there was going to be a UK international tour of another Asian-centric musical, well loved, that had recently won a Tony for its revival, The King and I. And I'm like, wow, that's convenient. That's really nice. But then you still have to audition, right? And so nag-audition pa rin. Lahat kami Asians, we auditioned.
Sa Miss Saigon,
Yeah.
siya kayo lahat.
And it was nice because nga there is a dearth of Asian. I wouldn't say there's a dearth, but then maybe it's not as big. Of course, obviously not as much as white actors. So when you announce a musical theater, an audition for a musical that involves Asians, you kind of involve or call back the same names, at least in the UK. So the company of Miss Saigon talked to the production of King and I if they could come to us, because we weren't in London then, we were in another venue.
Okay.
If they could come to us so that they could see
The cast.
and have like a special audition for those Asians in Saigon who can't go to London because we were in the middle of our tour. And that was really nice and very gracious of Cameron McIntosh. So they did, and that's where we got seen. And
This was not a Macintosh production.
no, this is a different Trafalgar Productions from Bartlett Share and King and I. So yeah, so they auditioned us, and then I got a call back, and eventually got offered the track.
So before your contract ended for Saigon, you already had a next show.
I already had a next show, and
That's awesome.
And the difference was going to be literally a week. So I had a week to fly home. No, sorry, 3 weeks. So I had a couple of weeks to just fly home, process the papers.
Ilan kayo mula sa Miss Saigon cast na tanggap sa King and I?
Well, from my batch in Saigon, dalawa. So me and Eroy Abesamis, who was a dancer, and then Ella Lisondra, who was in the previous cast of Miss Saigon, who had left when I had entered, was already in the King and I Palladium cast in West End. And then she continued to do the tours. She eventually covered Top 10 while I was covering them.
Awesome. Great. So can you tell me about the audition?
It's an audition, so you have the musical director and you have the resident director.
The reason why I'm asking is because the Macintosh group comes here to Manila knowing they're gonna find Filipino talent. So
Yeah,
in a sense, that's already medyo bukas na.
a little bit, yeah.
You're already there this time. You're in England.
Yeah.
And was it any different? What did you have to do?
I remember, I won't forget it, because my very first audition in London, I told Audie, my wife, like, this is my very first audition in London. And this for King and I. Because the recalls, because we couldn't make the recalls, that's when they came to us in our, wherever we were in. But yeah, I went there, it was in the Dominion Theatre. And the Dominion Theatre is a big theatre. It's right at the corner. And at the top floor is a rehearsal room. And you go up there and you wait your turn, and they call you. They've already had printed a copy of your CV, of your resume and your headshot. They call you, you sing 5 minutes, and they say thank you. And you're gone. And then you stay for a dance call, and then we had a dance call. But then I just specialized in it, kasi puro Asians na kami, right? So we kind of knew what we were getting into. So King and I was that. It's the other auditions that are more interesting. Like,
So wait, how long did you play King and I?
so King and I was for a little over a year's contract, but then COVID stopped us. So we were
So
supposed to
2
close.
years ka na dun sa London. May
Yeah.
trabaho ka.
Yeah.
Everybody else had to go home. I mean, Red went to the US.
Red went to
Everybody
the
else went
US.
home, pretty much.
Yeah. Went back into auditioning, the regular grind of auditioning.
Right.
So yeah, I was fortunate.
So you were supposed to tour with King and I?
So we were touring with King and I.
Weren't you supposed to come to Asia?
We were supposed to come to Asia. Yeah.
There was actually talk in Soler that we would bring in the production.
Right, and that would have happened now, around this time. But yeah, so my contract with King and I was supposed to end in May 2020 this year, but then COVID stopped us in March. And yeah, and that was really a stark realization, because international rin kami. Ang dami naming Japanese, ang daming Malaysian, Singaporean, all over the world then. And all of us, most of us, I'm a dependent to my wife who was taking her masters, but then everybody's visas were attached to that contract. So once it ended, everybody had to go back home. It was really quite, it was a stark realization.
So what did you have to do?
So I stayed in London. We had a place in London, and COVID happened. So yeah, so we went home.
Were you going to wait it out, or
We're gonna wait it out. Our visa was actually still there. Our visa is still okay until January.
oh, wait a minute? You didn't stop you from auditioning for other roles.
No, you just keep going. So, in the middle of King and I, dun ko na na-realize na this is what they were calling that rejection is a part of the norm. Di kasi tayo masyado sanay sa rejection.
Oo, masakit sa atin, reject.
Parang, we take it personal.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
but yeah, there it's like I looked up to so many of my colleagues who just go into the room, do their thing, and then leave, and then I was like, that's it, forget about it, and then they move on. They move on to the next audition and the next audition. And sometimes though, it's even the auditions where they feel they didn't do well that they actually book it. So a lot of it is out of your control. I needed to learn that. So in the middle of King and I was auditioning for a lot. Every time we would have a chance to go back to London, tempohan that there's an audition up. So
Are there like trade papers where you see the notices?
So if you're a practicing UK actor, we're all part of this system called Spotlight, where all of our CVs are up there. And it's also an opportunity for the casters to announce audition notices. If you don't have an agent, you'll see it on Spotlight, but chances are your agent will have, if you have an agent, they'll have first eyes on notice that's about to be posted on Spotlight, and then they'll contact you.
So wala ka pang agent, you were on your own?
I had an agent for the most part of Saigon, King and I. He was based off Australia.
I see.
And then at the latter part of 2019 to 2020, I had an agent now in the UK.
Alright. So tell me about the auditions of other roles.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. So sinabi mo, this, how lucky can you be that you have Miss Saigon and the King and I,
Yeah.
the two Asian vehicles?
Yeah.
Was that the end then?
No, because I wanted to be. I mean, yeah. At the back of your mind, you're like, these are amazing shows, right? Cameron McIntosh, Claude Michel, Schoenberg, and Alain Bobille for Miss Saigon, and then Rodgers and Hammerstein. Parang, lucky can a musical theater performer get? But then at the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm also Asian, right? So a lot of it is also because I'm Asian that I'm in these shows. But I want to see if I can be that small fish in the big ocean, auditioning for roles that are not necessarily Asian. And that's what I think I went to the UK for, to be considered beyond the color of my skin and beyond my race, and purely because of the merit of my skill and my craft.
No choice, you hit the two big shows already. The only two big shows already, so now you have to move on.
I have to move on.
So where'd you go?
And I auditioned for a big show, some big show that I really, really wanted to get into, because I watched some of the shows of the same director and company, and he's amazing. And he's like the new renegade, young director of musical theater and straight drama. He works with the best of the best. And he's so badass and he's so good, and I really wanted to work for that company. And there was an audition. And my agent calls and says, "Hi Joaquin, there's an audition up here for this show." I won't say what. But it's a dance call first. And they want to see everybody dancing first. And if you make the dance call right after in the afternoon, they're going to hear you sing. I'm like, okay, will they know that I'm not necessarily a dancer first? I would like to be seen singing first. I was like, I want to get into the show, but then everybody needs to dance first, right? I'm like, oh yeah, they do know. We've marked you in as a mover. And we marked you in as a mover, a strong mover, and but they really want to see everybody dance. I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go into the audition. Everybody is going to dance first, but then I'm going to be amongst movers as well. Not just the dancers, but movers. So, okay. I go into the studio in the heart of London, and it's so nerve-wracking because I'm amongst what seemed like 200 gorgeous, fit dancers of all ethnicities, all the colors of skin, and brown and beige, beautiful colors of different races, and they all look like celebrities. They all look like they're ready for a photo shoot in their dance attire, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I was so scared, and I sucked it up, solved my pride, did the dance, and it was not an easy dance call. Even for dancers, it was a hard dance call. And they have a thing that they say, wrong and strong. If you're gonna do it wrong, do it strong. And that was the summary of my audition. I didn't know what I was so out of my league. Like, I felt like I was so out of my league.
What is it, jazz?
No, it
Your
was
dance?
it was a mix of jazz, Latin, and contemporary dance. But basically, the choreographer was amazing. says that I want you guys to feel like you are the backup dancers of J-Lo or Beyonce on the Super Bowl. And everybody looked exactly like
Well,
that.
you danced at 1728.
I did, and I thought, I'm like, I had that. You know, I do this.
You had hip hop.
I did, but then I'm way out of practice. I did realize how much I love dancing. In that audition, I'm like, oh, I love this. Like, I want to nail it, and I used to do this, and I love it. But then, it's a different thing picking up choreography in a span of a few minutes and amongst 100 warm bodies inside a small studio.
Wow.
It's a different thing. It does so many things to you. You're tired, you're exhausted, you're picking up, it's fast. The turnover is fast. The next thing you know, the choreographer's saying, okay, by force, across the room. I was like breathing and my balls are up to my neck and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And you can't hide anywhere. And the thing is, like, your instinct is to go behind someone,
Yeah.
right? But then everybody else's instinct is to go in front of you because they want to be seen. Right? It's such a different...
Iba talaga.
Iba talaga. So I did my thing, and then there was a 5-minute break before we resumed. And in that 5 minutes, I was messaging my wife. I'm like, what am I doing here? Uwi na tayong Pilipinas. I'm not, I don't belong here. Like, I want to go home. Like, I was going through so much like self-doubt, self-sabotage, you know, imposter syndrome. I was just so out of my league. And also because I knew I really wanted to nail it, but I wasn't. And you look, and the minute that you look at everyone else, that's when it starts. You start to see, it's like quicksand. And then you can't catch up. And I understand why people have really bad anxiety through auditions. That's exactly it. That's what I was feeling. And finally, because it was a turn, we were just one batch out of how many batches the whole morning. And then finally the choreographer says, okay, the following names we're going to call to stay for the singing. The rest of you, thank you very much. We'll be in touch if we need you. But then that's also basically saying you're cut.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And I'm like, I just need to go to the singing round because that's what I do best, you know? And they call the names, and I knew it. I'm not going to hear my name. I'm not going to hear my name. And he called the names, and he goes, oh, and Joaquin. I was on my way out. I'm like, say what now? What? Joaquin.
And O.
Yeah, and Joaquin. And like, okay, yeah, I'm here. And then one of them comes up to me and then, we're just going to see you for the singing call that's happening. I'm like, okay. So I do the singing call. I come back. I felt like I nailed the singing call because that's what at least, kung ano yung hindi ko nagawa sa dance, nagawa ko sa singing. And, well, the rest is history. I booked the job.
Awesome.
I booked the job, and it would have been my job for the summer if
Not
wasn't
for COVID.
if not for COVID.
So you kind of lost 2 shows already. King and I.
Well, King and I was cut short.
Right.
Yeah, because it was going to extend.
So.
But then King and I was cut short. But it was already approaching the end of the contract. In fact, King and I was supposed to extend the contract into Asia. But because I booked the other show, I wouldn't have been able to join the Asia tour.
So the transfer ka na sana.
I was going to transfer to another show.
And then the pandemic happened.
And the pandemic.
So, awful pala. But awesome.
But then...
Awesome and awful.
Yeah.
Grabe. So
the pandemic happened.
And
And then
so
Fanny
what?
and Stella happened.
Alright. Okay, so you lost... Okay, wait. The show that you got into was canceled.
Yeah, canceled.
So, out na yan.
Wala na yan.
Were you... So, you're heartbroken again.
Heartbroken, but I was stuck in London, and I was just... You choose your battles. Like, I was depressed. It's like parang binigay sa akin ni God, and then He took it away. Right? But then, Audie put me in my perspective, gave me a nice perspective, saying, everybody lost everything.
True.
Everyone. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
And I can't wallow in this.
It wasn't about you.
It wasn't about me. So I can't wallow in it because everybody lost something. And I just found, I went through my own journey during Corona, and I started baking. I started my YouTube channel. I started singing. I found my love for like singing musical theater. I started doing my podcast. And that's it. I just found joy in every day that I was I was there. And even during Corona, I was still being asked to audition for certain titles via self-tape.
Okay.
So even that, I was finding joy in that and consolation in the fact that I was still being asked to audition. I mean, that's great, right? And then, without without any warning, like a surprise, when Parliament allowed open air performances again after 5-6 months in, they allowed open air performances. I got a call from my agent saying, "There's a director that wants to see you for a role, and the turnaround will be very fast. Meaning, you're going to read, you'll know right away because the rehearsal starts the week after, and it's going to be a 1-week rehearsal for a 9-show run in an outdoor pub." Right? I'm like, no one's doing anything. Let's do it, right? And turns out I booked that job. It was Fanny and Stella. It was a cast of 6 for a really, really lovely new musical. The director was Steven Dexter, who apparently has worked with so many Filipinos, Sheila Francisco, Lea Salonga. And it was for a small show in the outdoor garden of a famous pub in Vauxhall. And there were just 6 of us, and we played multiple characters. It was so lovely. It was so nice. It was going to be to an audience of socially distant, it was a socially distant audience of 40, and our run of 9 extended to 28 shows.
Wow.
Because it was a sellout hit. So, and the critics loved it. We got so much attention, and it was a little better. I think it was going to be. I got more attention and more out of that little show, which wasn't so little for me, than I would have if the other show continued.
This is not an Asian role.
This is not an Asian role. I play an American and I play a Frenchman.
So you've already broken the mold.
And it's a fringe show, and I remember telling my wife, I want to do the fringe. I want to do small shows in pubs in obscure places, because that's and it was so nice because it's so different from those big commercial shows that we were doing. There are just 6 of us, a small company. We took care of each other, and especially during the time of mounting a show in Corona, everybody was learning how to do things. We were making mistakes, but we were learning together, and there was absolutely no egos, and it was all about the craft, and it reminded me why I loved being an actor and why I loved the theater in the first place.
So did it get a lot of notice because it was like probably the only show playing in London?
Loads of notice.
Okay.
We got loads of critics, loads of theater reviewers, bloggers. All of a sudden, people know who I am. Like people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So people took note of you now.
Yeah. I got a couple of nice mentions in these reviews as well, which was nice. It was pleasant. Like I'm very, very pleased with how that turned out.
You think that's going to open a lot of doors for you?
I think it already has.
Okay.
It already has. It was an opportunity also for my UK agent to see me in action, because my first official project with my UK agent would have been that big show, but that didn't happen. So they saw me here, and it was actually nice. Really, really nice.
Can you tell us how you found an agent?
So I have a vocal coach in the UK, and I asked him to refer some agents, and he gave me some names, and I basically knocked on their doors as well, just as I usually would. I knocked on their doors or sent them emails, and tutok-tukoy. I sent out around maybe 11 emails and set meetings.
For those of you who don't know what agents are, they're basically the ones in charge of finding you the job, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference, I believe, between how we do it here. Kasi dito manager ang hinahanap.
Right.
Manager does everything, including managing your love life.
Yeah.
But over there,
my agent doesn't do that.
Yeah, but over there, it's just looking for the job, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important that you find a good agent to represent
Find someone that you really get along with, someone who really sees your value and your talent, and who will strategically put you in auditions. I think that's it. And I told my agent, I'm a hard worker. I'll do my bit. Just get me in the room. The hardest thing for an actor without an agent is to get into the room.
Right.
And that's where the agent will work for you, in the sense that they'll get you in the room. They can't book you the job. You're going to be booking your own job if you do your work.
But does your agent understand that you want to already break out of the Asian mold?
I think it was a collective idea when we first had that first meeting. My agent knew that she had wanted me to place me in other opportunities outside of the Asian trope or the Asian cliche, which is nice because the industry now is very welcoming of diversity and representation. Asian stories outside those that we already know or grew to love, new Asian stories, contemporary ones, relevant ones right now, and also in opportunities and shows that will cast outside of your race.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning we'll look at you as an actor regardless of what color your skin is. So it's so nice to see. Like my ultimate dream is to go to the National Theater and to do the RSC, to the Royal Shakespeare Company, to do some Shakespeare and straight drama.
Absolutely. I
And
think
that's where that's my bucket list. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I heard somewhere that the trend seems to be going towards a more authentic kind of casting.
Yeah.
In the olden days, they used to call it. There was a time na parang nagkaroon ng blind, colorblind casting.
Yeah.
In other words, they won't look at your skin, and they'll just cast you. Apparently, But now it's even a step further because they're really looking for authenticity.
Yeah.
Which means they are looking at your skin and casting you because of your skin.
Also, yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily, it could be a white role, but they're looking for somebody who's not white. Like, Hamilton is that way, right?
Right. Especially you have Black Lives Matters, and you have people really responding, sometimes ideally and sometimes not so ideal, to this whole rise of and clamor for representation.
Yeah.
And it's not coming out of nowhere. Like there's a reason for why there is a need to represent London or New York or the world in how it looks now.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. And truth of the matter is, our history is really based on how the white West has colonized the rest of the world, right? And there's a big shift that's happening right now. There's a resistance that's happening right now.
Tell me about it,
and
how you understand it.
How I understand it is that people are now responding to that erroneous way of looking at history and looking at the world. It's not always now from the lens of a white man. History now should be told from those who are living in it. And those that are living in this history are people of so many different colors and races. London now, for example, doesn't. When you walk through London, you'll see white, black, brown, beige, yellow, whatever color you want to see. And there's so many people that have so many stories in London alone. What more the United Kingdom? In the United States, for example, there's so many stories that are untold by non-whites. And I think musical theater and theater always responds to the generation and to what's currently happening.
Reflect life.
Exactly. So I think that's where the criticism is. If theater is supposed to reflect life, why is it so white?
Agree.
And that's why artists and theater makers are now responding to that. And it's so exciting.
I'm excited for you because I feel like, imagine you followed your gut. You left the comfort zone. You risked
So many things.
everything.
Yeah.
To get out there, to go to a white man's land. And now you're starting to make inroads. You're in the right place at the right time, I think. In the same way Leia and that batch, Monique were in the right place at the right time, would have known that a British, big time producer would come here looking for Asians and have the vehicle that would open the doors to, I would say, at least 1,000 Filipinos already by now, right? I mean, how many generations already?
We stand on their shoulders.
Yeah.
We're standing on their shoulders until now.
Yeah.
And it probably was a very different industry and a very different world back then. But then they broke through something. That first group of Filipinos that broke through something, and it's like putting that flag on the moon.
Yeah.
They did something for all of this now to happen.
Right.
Leia and Monique and Michael and Pinky and everybody in that first batch, they broke through something. I think it led on. It just dominoed over generations. Now Hamilton again broke through another barrier.
And you're entering this generation now where
I'm standing on the shoulders of people who are risking so many things, just like I'm risking something.
it's exciting.
It's super exciting, and I'm not successful by any means. I haven't done a West End show or whatever, but
Na yan.
I know, but I'm excited. Like, I'm doing what I love, and even with the challenge of Corona, I can't help but be thankful. I can't help but be very grateful for the opportunity that's led me up to this. And I know, I mean, it's scary times now. We don't know when the theaters will be open again, but I'm not seeing the bleak side of it. I think it's gonna come out even stronger and better than before, and I want to be there when it happens.
And with your film background, I'm sure you could use that as well.
That's already happening.
I wouldn't be
It's so
surprised if
exciting.
one day you did a film that reflected, a Filipino's life abroad or something.
Yeah, I'm now currently collaborating with some Filipino Brits
Awesome.
that are also actors, and just trying to write more content and just see what other stories we can tell during this. And I mean, I think this is a season for us to be creative. That's what artists do, right? I mentioned this in another podcast, but when Matisse could no longer paint and hold a brush, he started cutting up pieces of paper and still make art.
Awesome.
So that's what's happening now.
Yeah.
You know, we just have to keep cutting pieces of colored paper and keep making.
We're doing this, for example.
Yeah, this is it.
Right. Well, Wax, I mean, thank you for sharing, but can you tell...
It's long. I'm sorry.
No, well, it's very interesting. I think a lot of young people who want to break in. What advice would you have for young people out there? Because this is the time to be able to dream now and say, yes, someday I can be an actor out there. And beyond Saigon and beyond King and I can do any role that's out there, that as long as it's authentic. What would you tell them?
Go to a place where you will continue to grow, always. And if in seasons naman yan. So if in a certain season you feel that you're going to grow abroad by training and applying for drama school or musical theater school, go to that place where you feel you can grow. And then when you see that, oh no, I'm kind of stagnating and plateauing, find another opportunity to keep growing. As long as you keep moving forward. I think that's what drove me to get to where I am now. I wasn't settled. I wasn't complacent. I didn't want to say, okay, hanggang dito na lang. I wanted to keep growing. And at the back of my mind, I still feel I need to go train in drama school. But then I look back at what I've accomplished and what I've been through. I'm like, wow, this is my training. This is where things are opening up. So I just keep following the doors that open and knowing that there's nothing too far or there's nothing too big to dream.
Yeah.
The world is so small right now. And,
Yeah, I believe that.
And just shoot an email to your dream school. Just inquire. I mean, allow yourself that possibility. And worry about the hurdles later on. Because if you feel that that's where you want to go, the hurdles are worth it.
Wackie taught a workshop, by the way, in Trumpet's Play Shop. I was so amused because he had a recital with his students, and he got all these big-time performers from London and everything commenting on your students' performance. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I just know that you will pay the way. The same way that the people that you're saying you're standing on the shoulders of, you'll pay the way for those young people.
I hope so. I mean, ultimately, I think the fulfillment doesn't stop with me taking a bow. It's really just passing it on also to someone else.
Mahaba pang Mahabang career pa to. So I'm happy to say that we've been able to record a few songs by Wackie, and we're just gonna show you what he's made of. Thanks.
Thank you.
And have a great. You're going back to London
Yep.
in a day.
In a day. I don't know when this is gonna air, but yeah, I'm gonna fly back to London. It was nice to be home for a bit, but then yeah, it's time to.
Can you promise to send us stuff as you
Of course.
conquer?
Of course.
You know,
Of course.
keep us posted on your career,
Love to. Love to.
so we can discover your life in London.
And then after Corona, it would be so nice if you guys could see me in action. It would be nice.
I was ready to bolt and watch that show you got into, and then we just got canceled, right?
Yeah.
Next season.
Next season.
Thanks, Wackie.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm high above the city. I'm standing on the ledge. The view from here is pretty, and I step off the edge. And now I'm falling, baby, through the sky, through the sky. I'm falling, baby, through the sky. It's my calling, baby, don't you cry, don't you cry. I'm falling down through the sky toward the street that I'm from. Oh, Broadway, here I come. Broadway, here I come. The pressure, it increases the closer that I get. I can almost go to pieces, but I'm not quite there yet. See, I've been braving crazy weather, drowning out my cries. I pull myself together, I focus on the prize. I'm falling, baby, through the sky, through the sky. I'm falling, baby, through the sky. It's my calling, baby, don't you cry, don't you cry. I'm falling down through the sky, and it's a tune you can hum. Oh, Broadway, here I come. Will I remain the same, or will I change a little bit? Will I feel broken or totally complete? Will I retain my name when I'm the biggest you just hit? Will I blend in with the rest of the street? The people are pointing, I guess they never guess that the saint that they're anointing is frightened of the mess. But even though I fear it, I'm playing all my cards. Baby, you are gonna hear it when I give them my regards. I'm falling, baby, through the sky, through the sky. I'm falling, baby, through the sky. It's my calling, baby, don't you cry, don't you cry. I'm falling down through the sky, and I refuse to go numb. Oh, Broadway, here I come. Broadway, here I come. Broadway, here I come. Broadway, Broadway, here I come. And the last thing I hear impact grows near. Is it a scream or a cheer? Well, never mind, I'll never find out, 'cause Broadway I am